Pure thinking is creative. Behold, is not life much more than food, and body than clothing? Matthew 6:25. Jesus was showing his disciples something very important, and that was that there was something beyond food, something beyond body, something beyond mind. And that is what we have to find also. That we reach that state of consciousness where we become creative. Consciousness will always remain until you have discerned every thought, every emotion, every reaction. And you'll find consciousness remains after the mind is emptied of all these things. It still remains the unknowable. But what is beyond the mind is unknowable, yet is the only reality, the only creativeness. It is the uncreated that is created. The created is not created. But when we realize this, we will see that we have within ourselves the same power, that same consciousness that is behind all creation, because there can only be one, that cannot be two. If there was another consciousness beside infinite consciousness, then the infinite could not be infinite. So therefore, when we empty our minds of all the things, all our thoughts, all what we have gathered, our memories, emotions, experiences, we discern them all, and we can see that they are not the reality, that they are not the thing that is created, because an idea, a belief, a thought is not created. Where does your thinking arise from anyhow? Your thinking arises from your memories, from your experiences. And it's your memories that bring good and indifferent, bad and good, whatever the case may be. Your memories are the things that cause antagonisms, hates, joys. So you see, they're all mixed up in your mind. Therefore you've got to see the duality of the mind before you can free yourself from opposites and duality. And this duality is the most important thing in your lives as far as you are concerned, because it causes all conflicts. It is a rigid mind with fixed ideas that is ignorant. This is the type of mind that cannot understand, because it can only reflect its own conditioning. If your mind is conditioned then in a particular way, and can't see anything else, it is a rigid mind. You have certain ideas, and beyond those ideas you cannot think. If your ideas are rigid, then you cannot gain beyond them, you cannot think beyond them. In fact, you're afraid to, for the simple reason you're afraid to lose your conditioning. You want to fight, so you maintain your conditioning. That's what happens. That's why you maintain your conditioning. When you begin to understand, you will realize that most minds are filled with the ideas of others and are incapable of thinking for themselves. Most so-called intellectuals have their minds stuffed with the ideas of others, and it is difficult for them to do any original thinking. They may be well read, but what of it? They are conditioned by it, and are merely expressing their conditioning. There are millions of this type of people in the world, and no doubt you have come up against quite a number of them. They have read all sorts of books and have got all sorts of ideas in their minds about this and about that. And they think that it is real. And they all quote this and quote that, but what use is of it? They're only quoting their own condition, they're conditioned by it. Now, if anything new comes up, they're reluctant to accept it because of the fact that they are still conditioned and they are lazy. They don't want to cast aside that which they already have hold in their minds because of the fact that they are conditioned. That type of individual you can read easily. They are stuffed up with so many ideas of others and become so cocky in their own feelings of superiority, when all the time they are really foolish. An understanding mind is one that is pliable, for without pliability of mind there can be no understanding. When one has an understanding mind freed from fixations, it is easy to detect the mind that is fixed and rigid, for there can be no truth in a rigid mind, because truth is beyond mind. If you maintain a certain idea about truth, about God, whatever the case may be, and you hold on to that rigid idea and nothing can move, you know that you haven't got the truth, because it's an idea. And because it's rigid in your mind, you maintain the idea and you could never get beyond it, because you think that is truth, when it's not true. An idea is not truth. The word truth is not truth. The word water is not water. It isn't until such time you begin to see that you begin to break up these rigid ideas, so that your mind becomes pliable and free. Truth is always unfolding the mind that is aware of its own conditioning. A mind that is aware of its own conditioning, truth will unfold, because the mind becomes pliable. The intelligence that built the brain and the body, the nervous system, is an intelligence that knows how. Otherwise, the body could not exist. Who could build an eye? Who could build the ear to hear? Who could build all the mechanism to give the voice? Spirit built the body. Life is spirit, and spirit built the body. The spirit is an intelligence, and that intelligence is working through the body continuously. Under these circumstances, then we see that life that built the body is an intelligent action, because it's behind the whole of the universe, and because it is behind all creation, it must be behind also the creation of man. That man can think, he can become conscious. He's no longer just a puppet. He becomes conscious or aware of his own consciousness. That awareness comes only when the mind is cleansed of all that is false. The mind is cleansed of all that is made up, because truth is not made up. What you make up about truth in your mind is not truth. Truth is freedom. But if you have a rigid mind, there is no freedom. Truth, that is the moving power of the universe, must also be the same in man, for there can be no separation in the life that is animating the universe and acting in mankind. As man frees himself from his conditioned thought, life unfolds man's divine nature. What is it causes then your troubles, your anger, your hates, your envies, your antagonism? Is it not your memories and your experiences? Is it not the self with all its greed, its desires, cravings? These are the things that are unspiritual. And if you belong to any particular spiritual organization and you still maintain your antagonisms, you cannot be spiritual. If you think then by conforming to some rule of any particular spiritual organization, and that by conforming to this rule that you obtain your place in heaven, you are then only building an illusion for yourselves, because it cannot be. Heaven is a state of consciousness where it is free from all these things. When the consciousness is free from rigidity, when the consciousness is free from anger, hate, and memories, then there is heaven, because there is no longer antagonisms, there is no longer hates, there is no longer these things that create envy and struggle in man. Christ that is eternal and ever present and knows nothing of death, sickness or health, success or failure, because these are opposites. Jesus said clearly, unless your eye be single, unless you do not see double, unless you do not hold opposites. If you understand opposites, then they will drop from you. Only the consciousness that is free from conditioning is aware of being. Being is now. Being can never be realized through becoming, for becoming is always in the future, and the future only exists in the mind. Where does the future exist? Think of it now. The future, only in the mind. You can easily see when you search your mind, where is the past? Only in your mind. Where is the future? Only in your mind. But the now, the ever-present now is now. It's a livingness, is it not? Now, at this very moment, now is a livingness. But if then you try to stay in your mind, you experience that particular moment of livingness. It is past. It's a memory. Future, it hasn't come. It's in the mind. Still, that livingness is eternal and ever present now. And in that livingness is the Christ, the eternal Christ, which does not live in opposites, nor is it caught up in hates or envies and these sort of things, because it does not in any way remember that. Because of the fact that memory is the cause of hates, jealousies, and lives in opposites. You have joy in one time, sorrow in another. You have success, you've got health and ill health. You have all these various things because they live in the mind. They come real to you, of course. They are very real to the mind. But after all, they are not really real. You know why they're not real? When we trace things from the soul, we get a better understanding. Science has given us the key as far as matter is concerned, showing that there is no division in matter anywhere. But the basis of matter is a substance postulated as ether of space, which interpenetrates everything, and out of that substance everything is created. Everything is electrical, because the atom itself is energy, which is an electrical, small whirlpool of energy, which has a positive and negative force. It has its nucleus, which becomes active, throws off part of itself in small electrons which revolve round in space and create a whirlpool in this ether. In the ether, mind you. It's a whirlpool in ether, so minute that you cannot see or feel. Yet, in that is the most dynamic energy, in the minutest particle. And the story is that energy encased in its smallest space becomes a tremendous force. Now, this substance is everywhere. There is nowhere where it is not. Now, there's no flaw in that substance. It is universal. You can call it universal mind, if you like, as a name, but a name can mean nothing. Yet out of that substance all form is created. You, me, everything. The body is created out of this substance. But in that substance there is something else. There is a directing power. A directing power that is working, creating, and intelligence becomes energy in movement. So, right within the very ether of the form is created. The etherons then come into operation. Gather together the atoms surround the etheron until such time as reduced in vibration, so it becomes a physical fact. So you and me are produced out of this substance and we remain in this substance, and this substance still retains and holds us. But life, then there existed, this intelligence existed before it created the body out of the one substance. That life will always exist because it's conscious. Now you see clearly, this is the great fact, that the substance itself is universal. The intelligence is also universal. The consciousness is also universal. It's infinite in nature, and there is nowhere where it is not. These three make up the trinity of infinity, and out of these three everything has been created. If there is no flaw in the fundamental substance, how is it that there is flaws then after the form is created? These flaws come about through man himself. The self does this. The mind of man does this, because the mind of man creates thought according to his conditioning. And when he is conditioned, he thinks and is caught up in his conditioning, and consequently his conditioning is expressed, and he can only think according to his conditioning. Therefore you see that you create in your own body is exactly what you feel. Your thought, feeling, reaction. Therefore is it not necessary that you must continuously in the ever-present discern your thought, feeling, reaction, so that you will not be caught up in it. And if you're caught up in it, you create those conditions. If your thoughts then are the result of your conditioning, you will be expressing that conditioning, and therefore the body responds. Is not your body the sounding board of your thoughts and emotions? You see then that the body is mind materialized, and you have the power to create disturbances. You have the power to create, yes, in your own children up to the third and fourth generation because of your thoughts. But as man becomes more freed from his condition, he becomes more spiritual in his nature, more loving in his nature, and becomes more Christ-like. And as he becomes more Christ-like, his thoughts will be that of that nature. He will be giving expression to the real thing. His thinking will be really creative. And as this Christ consciousness becomes more evident in human family, so will we build up finer and wonderful generations of people. Our civilization in 1,000 years after this will be entirely different to what we are today, because we will be going along towards the development of the Christ consciousness which already is in man. But what is hiding the Christ consciousness? Is it not your conditioning? Is it not your intellect? It's your intellect then that is causing the hindrance of all the expression of this Christ consciousness in man. When you begin to discern your thought, feeling, reaction, and you see how stupid you are, it passes away from you. But you do not see how stupid you are, you will still be caught up in your condition. Being is now, being can never be realized through becoming, for becoming is always in the future, and the future only exists in the mind. Becoming is not a reality, it is but a belief. Being is now, and is realized only when one is freed from past and future, freed from conditioned thought, through understanding what conditioned thought is and how it comes about. And so being is not fact, a belief. Being is not a belief. You will see this. A belief is something that you've created in your mind, but being you can't. Being is something that is beyond the mind, but you reach it, and in that being it is tremendous. But you must reach it only one way. Jesus says you cannot enter any other way except through that gate, the gate of the Christ consciousness into the Father. When you are aware of being, you will still see an outside world. You can be aware of your physical body, and when you close your eyes, you will hear all the sounds of life. But you will only be aware of being when you know all that is relative. And even all the sounds of life is relative, because that is created. Don't think now, because that after you can feel the sounds of life, and you're clairvoyant or clairaudient, or whatever the case may be, that is the truth. There's nothing of the sort. That is senses. That is senses that you already have, which are hidden, which have not come into operation because of the density of your own brain and thinking. The density of man's thought prevents him from using those senses that he already has, so that he calls clairvoyant is clear sight, and clairaudient is clear hearing. There's a vast difference between one that is aware of being and one that is merely becoming. The one that is becoming is caught up in time, but the one that is aware of being is no longer caught up in time, for he knows that time can never reveal the timeless. That which is now can only be revealed when all that is relative is understood. In freedom alone is the ever-present revealed. In freedom alone. Now, why are you not free? That's the point. Because you're caught up in your mind, in your thoughts, in your beliefs, what you've read, what you think is true. If you follow that, you cannot be free. The yogi practices one concentration on the inner senses, where he becomes unconscious of the outer world. But even this can never reveal awareness of being. Even the greatest yogi, no matter how far he goes, as far as the expression of concern, he will not be aware of being, because he's caught up yet in the senses, in the inner senses which he has developed naturally. And he can tell you many things. He can probably look back into your life and tell you when you were born, your infancy. He would look ahead and probably see predestination. He would tell you that too. He will tell you all these things, but that is not reality. That is still relative. Consciousness permeates all states and goes beyond mind and can free itself from conditioned thought. This state the yogi calls the samadhi. He frees it from conditioned thought. The highest attainment is called samadhi, a state where there is a state of bliss, where creativeness begins. It has not become active. He lives in samadhi in a state of suspension between the creativeness that really is and the relative world. He is suspended between the two. Now, those who go beyond, then unite those two, become creative also, and know the difference between the relative and that which is real. And the creativeness becomes so powerful because it is consciousness. It becomes aware. That is truly the Master. That was Jesus. That was the Masters too in Tibet. These who realized the tremendous force that is hidden up in mankind. And you will see the highest attainment of the yogi, but there's still not awareness of being, because the known can never reveal the unknown. The created can never reveal the uncreated. That which alone is created. Only through awareness of being does the created become truly created. An awareness of being. So wonderful is it beyond that. I cannot tell you what it is. I can only know that when the mind is free from all these opposites, from all beliefs, from all antagonisms, from memories and experiences. You go beyond that, you leave these all behind because you know what they are. And in that awareness of being becomes the tremendous force, because it is life itself, free. You have now broken down the bars and doors of your own prison that you created yourselves, and you are free. Free. When I and the Father are one in reality, not merely an idea in a conditioned mind, but actually created now, one with the Creator of all. This is pure thought that is not conditioned by past or future, health or sickness, success or failure, good or evil, God and the devil. For those are seen as products of the mind that is caught up in opposites and is thereby conditioned. So when you say God and the devil, you've created it in your mind. Isn't that so? It's only in the mind you've got that. You don't know what God is, and you don't know what the devil is. Because it's in your mind. You've created an idea of God. You've created an idea of the devil. Because God is infinite in nature, where can the devil be? If God is infinite in nature, then there's nowhere where he's not. There cannot be anywhere outside him that the devil can exist, because God is infinite in nature. There is nothing outside him. Then the devil must be in the mind of man. But the devil is very real. Yes, he's very real. The devil is the self. The self in man. That's the devil. And hell is the mess that the devil makes. The hell is the mess that the self makes. And hell is the mess that we are all making just now in this world today because of the self. Do you think our conferences will come to anything? No. I say to you, our conferences will end in naught, in nothing. Because of the fact that everyone goes there with the condition, and go there with the idea to protect the condition. They will not see the cause of the misery of the condition, how it could be removed instantly, so that mankind could be freed from all the misery in the world today. But that will not happen, because our leaders are immature. They are not mature. Even the highest of them are not mature. They may be intellectual, but what of it? They may be well-read, what of it? They may be political giants, but what of it? All these things are in the mind. But spiritual truth is not in the mind. Spiritual truth comes only into operation when the mind is understood, and all in the mind is understood. The cause of antagonisms, the cause of wars, the cause of misery, when these things are understood, then only does the spiritual man come forth in all his glory. And Christ is freed from all this, and is one with the Father in reality and spirit, now and forever. Because of the fact, I know perfectly well how Jesus taught. I know perfectly well how Jesus acted. I know exactly how he thought. I know exactly how he acted. He's entirely action. There was no reaction with him. If we continue to react, we'll always react. When you continue reacting, you're always in trouble. You're always worried, you're always upset, because you're reacting all the time to conditions. What is it that frees you from reaction? Action, of course. When action is truly born in you, it is spiritual in nature. It is an action that comes into operation unconsciously, in which you don't do it at all. It is something else that's doing it. Transformation takes place within you. Transformation is action, but it is spiritual action. You don't transform yourself, turn yourself inside out, upside down, but as you are now seeing what is false, there is already transformation taking place within you. That transformation is brought about by the Spirit. It's the Spirit, and Jesus knew it. And that is how he was transformed from a son of man to the Son of God. And so, what he did, all can do. You see, what I do, greater things shall we do. So it is true. If we can only see clearly the tremendous force that is waiting to come into operation, in action, but what are we doing? Always reacting and preventing the action, the true action of the Spirit. So, as you are sitting here now, there is coming about a transformation. You are changed. You do not know how you were changed. You didn't change yourself. You can't change yourselves at all. The self can't change the self. The self is the self all the time. But as the self is understood, there is transformation. And the Christ alone can transform man. Thought cannot transform man. Belief cannot transform man. Ideas cannot transform man. Only the Christ can transform. And the Christ comes into operation as soon as we understand ourselves. There is an intelligence active in the body that we are not aware of, but which is the action of the creativeness within. We digest our food without knowing it, inhale prana, oxygen, hydrogen, and other elements. The heart is unconsciously pumping our blood to the remotest part of our body, carrying all the elements to it, to replenish the cells and take back the waste given up so that the cells can be kept in perfect action. The impurities are eliminated from the body through the lungs, the skin, the kidneys, the bowels, while the body is maintained at an even temperature, even in winter and summer, by this internal adjustment. It is the intelligence that is maintaining all this activity so that we can express ourselves in the body. This intelligence is the active principle of life and performs what the consciousness is aware of. Consciousness, intelligence, and ultimate substance are the trinity of spirit, the trinity of infinity. It is when the Creator and His creation become one, you will realize a oneness in which there is no separation. The created is always relative to the created, yet must exist in the one, because of the substance. Again we see clearly the life that created the body existed before the body was created, and will exist after the body is dissolved into the substance of which it was created, after life has expressed itself according to the plan, divine plan, which is nature's plan. The why of it is locked up in the infinite, and no one can know what the why is. Yet we know that we are. The Father has life in himself, for his soul he granted the Son to have the same life in himself. Jesus did. What I see the Father do, I do likewise. These words were the words of the Master who was aware of being. And I know that these words are true. The word itself means nothing. It is only when you arrive at that state of consciousness you know that it's true. And you know what the Master knew at that time. To most people, these words merely create an idea in their conditioned mind. So they attribute to the Master a power that they do not possess themselves. The Master said these things, I do, greater things will you do, if you will but believe, understand. There is no machine created that can match the human body. And there is no power outside the body doing all these amazing things. Thus, you must admit that it is all done from within. It works from within out. The most intricate machine created by man is created from within man himself. Thus, we realize that the created can never match its creator. While the created is in a continual flux, the uncreated remains stable, unchangeable. While the created is relative, the created remains eternal. That is why the life that created the body existed before it created the body, and will exist eternally, even after the body is dissolved away. Consciousness and life are synonymous. Therefore, consciousness in man is that eternal reality that remains forever, while his body dissolves away into the substance out of which it was created. When any malformation in the body is dissolved into the substance, there is no malformation. It has gone forever, because it cannot exist in that divine substance, that universal substance, which is the basis of all thought. only through the awareness of being is this understood. When we become aware, we'll realize that there is but one consciousness, and that the subconscious is merely the hidden part of our consciousness. Thus we are in constant touch with the source of inspiration, genius, intuition, and the limitless source of love, wisdom, and power, for the Father and I are one. We are continually in contact with this tremendous, limitless source of love, wisdom, and power, which cause of the fact that I and the Father are one. The very fact I can speak, the Spirit alone has voice. Spirit alone can create voice. Life alone can express voice. Life created the mechanisms with which the voice could be created. When I'm standing before you here now, I do not think what I will say. It would be stupid for me to think what I will say. If I tried to memorize something that I would say to you, it would not be true. With no inspiration. You would feel how flat it would be. And I would feel flat too, because I was trying to memorize my words. And what would it be? Merely words without anything behind. It's the truth. I and the Father are one. The Father within me who speaketh. That is a proof when we know that Spirit alone has voice. You don't speak from memory. You don't speak from conditioning. You don't speak from anything else except if you know that God is making His expression through you. Life is speaking. Life is expressing. As Jesus said, I and my Father are one. Know you not? I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Is a Father who ever remaineth within me. It is He, the form of His own being. What a wonderful, wonderful thing. It is very grand to be able to know that someone knew this and gained that before, showing the way that we can also gain it through understanding. Now you'll rather see that if you're caught up in ideas, images, beliefs, tradition, you're bound by them. And there is no longer the freedom through which you become aware, because you will think and act in accordance to your beliefs, your ideas, your tradition, your limitations. I spoke to some people today, and I spoke to them, and they answered me in their limitations. It was useless trying to make any explanation, not until such time as they themselves really realized what the conditions were and how they were conditioned. Therefore, that which is binding in the mind is the prison in which we live. If we merely change our ideas, one idea for another, one belief for another, we only substitute one prison for another. Some change from one religion to another. Some find orthodoxy rather restrictive, so they take on some new cult. This is not understanding and will never lead to freedom. The new prison may be a little more comfortable, but it's still a prison in which there is limitation, in which there is no understanding of what the mind is made up of. Now, I am not giving you a new religion or a new way of living. What I am trying to do is to take everything away from you that is preventing the expression of reality. If I give you a new pattern to follow, then it would be of no use, because you would follow the pattern and you'd be expressing then my conditioning, which will become your conditioning. So, I have no intention of giving you a new religion or a new cult or anything of the kind. And I don't want you to accept what I say, by no means. I want you to challenge what I say. Otherwise, it'll be of no value to you. If you don't think about what I tell you, it'll be of no value to you. If you just accept what I say to you because it pleases you, according to your conditioning, well, it's of no value to you. If you reject what I say because of your conditioning, then it's of no value to you either. But if you think about what I say to you and begin to discern what is in your mind, then it is of value to you. And that is the way of transformation. Transformation that you do not create. It is transformation of the Spirit itself, transforming and changing these things that are false, dissolving away into nothingness where they belong, because they are merely an illusion. To free oneself, there must be true discernment and understanding of what is in the mind. We must know what ideas are, what a belief is, and why we believe as we do. Then we will see how our beliefs come about. We must understand what rituals are. Then we will see that they are mental and not spiritual. You repeat a ritual, you repeat it mentally, is it not? You memorize it and you talk it, you speak it all. Is that not so? It is mental. There is no spirituality in a ritual. You may repeat your ritual 10,000 times, but it will not give you the understanding that leads to freedom. In fact, you get further bound up in your belief, that which is binding. We must know what tradition is. We must see it as a drag that we must discard before we can be free. We must see that we are living in the past, and we're always giving expression to the past now, in this very moment, and we could never know the living present when we're giving expression to the past at this very moment. We are giving expression to our condition. And I hope you can see this. It's most important that you do. We must see and understand nationalities and how they separate us. We must see all that tends to separate man from man. Then we will see that these things, even our treasured beliefs, have nothing to do with true freedom, but only limit us, causing frictions, wars, and misery. Even an idea of reality is not reality. If we are not aware of our own conditioning, we can never be free, nor can we express our true nature, which is the Christ Spirit that is in one and all. Most people are not aware of being. The proof lies in the multitudes that float in the sea of ignorance, tossed by every wind, idea and emotion, now drowned in the effects. We see a revival in England, 50, 60,000 people, but they're just as ignorant as they were 5 minutes before. And what happened before when these revivals came? The churches were full for a little while, but then in a very short time they were more empty than they ever were before, because people still maintained their conditioning. They didn't understand. They were swept up by the emotion. These things do more harm than good. The only good that can come to man is through his understanding himself, his own emotions, why he flares up that way, why for a few moments that he prays, the next few moments he's at his brother's throat. One time, then he'll pray, and the next time he's the devil. Is there any hope for civilization under these circumstances? I don't think so. If each of one of you students becomes an individual who can explain this condition to those around you, you have done more good than all the revivals in the world, because they end in naught, just the same as all our conferences will end in naught. Don't think through some organized religion that you're going to gain heaven through some form of virtue by your prayer, still while you maintain your separateness, your divisions, because how can you enter into wholeness if you're divided? How can you enter into infinity if you are divided? So they rush here and there to find health and happiness, that try to change their environment in an effort to free themselves. They try to demonstrate health, wealth, etc., but still they have not the key that opens the door to freedom. So they flounder in their own conditioning, which is increased through their efforts in the wrong direction. In their ignorance, they rush to those who claim they can teach them. But all they do is to put them on a rudderless boat and leave them still subject to the storms and waves and the sea of ignorance. Jesus said to his disciples, "You shall not be called rabbi." That means to say that you will not be called a rabbi, a teacher. And he was telling his disciples because of the fact that he had already chastised the Pharisees for posing as teachers of men when they did not know the truth. So it is that once we realize the inner value, the true value of the Christ, the true value of the Christ, not merely an emotional effect of an idea of Christ, but the true value of the Christ within, then you will have discerned all that is preventing the true Christ from manifesting. Then, when you understand true values, you can help your brother, and not before. Don't give him an idea. That will have no value to him, while he still maintains his separateness, his antagonisms, and the things that are preventing the Christ from manifesting. If you listen to most people, you will hear them speak of their God as separate. Their God is a relative God, who could do nothing because their God is afar off, separate outside themselves. When the individual consciousness says, "I'm sick, I'm well, I'm a failure, I'm a success," is caught up in opposites that are in the mind. This is the error, unaware of being. So, to the individual consciousness, sin, suffering, and death are real. But in being, there is no sense of error. No error of sense. Therefore, there is no destructive element, because in being there is no opposites, nothing to overcome, nothing to conquer. Therefore, no fear, no doubt, no sin, no good, no evil. These things only exist in the mind that is conditioned by them. So in reality, there is none of these things. You've seen them, you know them, what they are. But they have passed away. It dissolved into nothingness. Nothing to conquer, nothing to overcome. If you then try to conquer something, you conquer and conquer again, and you have never overcome it. How can you overcome something? You don't overcome it because you overcome it and overcome it again, and conquer it again. But once you understand it, it falls away from it. There is no such thing in spirit as conquering anything. There is freedom. There is creativeness. Oh, if you could only come to this point. This thing that I know is so mighty and so wonderful. Now, if truth and error commingle, they produce health and sickness, good and evil, life and death. Then who can say whether a truth or error is the greater? Only through true discernment of the false does the false fall away, for it has no existence except in the conditioned mind. Truth is beyond mind. The power to see does not originate in matter. It must originate in mind. Otherwise, there could be no cognition of what you see and hear. If we are unaware of being, then the mind is caught up in the error that the body is subject to, all manner of conditions. Then we believe that the mind has no say in the matter, but the mind has all the say in the matter, and the flesh has no say, because the mind and the seas are one, and the body is the thing that shows it. We call the body physical matter, but science has proved that the body is mind in formation, and the directing power behind this formation is life, and life alone has consciousness. The ignorant mind makes all things start from the lowest, instead from the highest. Supposing now that we reverse the process and see the formation from the source of all things, Divine consciousness in which there is no separations, no opposites. So in tracing all things, we constantly ascend in infinite being, where there can be no separation, no error, no opposites. Then the physical consciousness, the illusion, the cause of error dissolves away, and the consciousness of reality takes its place because it is there all the time. The body has no life apart from the one life that is eternal and ever present. So if we cling to the body, we lose sight of the real life that is free even while in the body. I am the light, Jesus said. He who sees me sees the Father. I am the Lord thy God, now and forever. Benediction. O mighty one, thou didst not yoke me to the demands of the flesh, but to understand them. Now that I do understand this, I no longer whine with complaint. With thee I have everything, and no longer crave as I did in my ignorance of our oneness. I shall not disagree with any man who is not found himself, for everyone must find the way unaided. Thou didst water the yielding crops that grew without man's aid. All that man did was to plant the seed, and now then mowed the earth and sprinkled it with sun and rain. Now I am confident that all is mine because we are one. That thy seed is mine, and mine is thine, O faithful